Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and today we're going to be talking about the destroyed chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you have any suggestions or questions, please comment down below. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It is because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the dead chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. The Dark Paladins was a loyalist Spacemarine chapter whose deeds and glories have been lost to the decay of time. Very few Imperial records exist on the chapter. The only known facts are that they were created during the Third Founding, and that the entire chapter was destroyed sometime during the 41st millennium. The last report of the chapter has filled many secret councils of the Imperium with cold silence and furious debate in equal measure. The words, taken from the desperate communication with the chapter's primary battle barge, tell of the Space Marines landing upon the planet of Jarman Primus to investigate the sudden loss of communication with the manufacturing world. It was not long after the first Thunderhawk sat down that reports of unliving warriors of steel assaulting them from all sides came in with furious speed. The Dark Paladins chapter master made the fateful decision to deploy the entirety of his chapter's force against the unknown Xenos threat. And within solar hours, drop pods were descending from the skies, bringing the full might of the Imperium's finest warriors to bear. The Dark Paladins fought what quickly became a valiant rearguard action against the mass ranks of the inhuman creatures, destroying many towering vehicles and bringing down fiendish steel beasts that seemed to slip from their grasp, becoming almost intangible in battle. The most worrying were the final garbled reports of the Dark Paladins chapter master, who explained that while combat raged and his men died, the Dark Paladins tech marines stood rigid, their eyes frozen in awe at the mechanical monstrosities they faced. Final uncertain pig views sifted from the transmissions of the Dark Paladins fleet show the destruction of their great battle barge by a black-bladed ship that appeared almost from nowhere, their beams of vibrant energy tearing the vast battleships apart in solar seconds. Of the Dark Paladins chapter, nothing else is known, except that not one battle brother left that planet alive. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that terrible Xenos that destroyed the entirety of the chapter were the Necrons. The Warhawks and Venerators were loyalist Space Marine chapters that met their end simultaneously during the 36th millennium, when Abaddon the Despoiler scoured the Elysian sector during his 5th Black Crusade. Abaddon the Despoiler purposefully fomented invasions on a dozen worlds within the sector, entrusting the destruction of cities, shrines, and temples to his warlords, while using his fleet to keep the Imperial Navy engaged in deep void skirmishes. It was Abaddon's intention to create a sector-wide conflict that would provoke a massive response from the Imperium and draw in chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. His plan set in motion, Abaddon led the bulk of the Black Legion to the city of Kazarin Lutean on the world of Tarnith, burning the great city to the ground and enslaving its people. When the Warhawks and Venerators Space Marines arrived on Tarnith in chapter strength, they made immediate assaults upon the city. At that same moment, Abaddon ordered the mass sacrifice of 10 million citizens, their blood funneled via the city's great canals into vast lakes of gore. Above the lake, the warp opened up, and Doombreed, the greatest of Khorne's demon princes, stepped into reality and howled in triumph. Abaddon had made a pact with Doombreed, promising the skulls of the entire chapters of Space Marines in return for his service. With thousands of bloodletters pouring forth from the Lake of Blood, Doombreed waded into the ranks of the Warhawks and the Venerators. The Black Legion then sprang their trap, and from prepared positions across the city, they opened fire on the Loyalists, blocking their retreat. They fought without fear or respite, but both chapters fell that day, their warriors mutilated by the demonic hosts, and their gene seed forever lost to the Imperium. The greenskin menace known as the Orcs have been responsible for the complete destruction of many Space Marine chapters. For example, during the War for Armageddon, the Astral Drakes were a loyalist Space Marine chapter that were completely annihilated to the last Astartes while fighting the Orc armies of the Prophet of the Wall, the Orc warlord Godskull Makorok Thraka. The Obsidian Glaives were another Astarte chapter completely destroyed by the Orc menace. This honorable successor chapter of the Ultramarines had existed since the Second Founding, and many of its initial battle brothers fought during the Horus Heresy. Clad in black and bone power armor, these battle brothers belonged to the ancient and proud chapter that defended itself from the Orc invasion of Orc warlord Gruk Facerippa and his Red Wall. As the Orcs pulverized the sector, they eventually assaulted the Obsidian Glaives' home planet of Osteria. They simply overwhelmed the Imperial forces. Completely outnumbered in the face of the greenskin tide, the chapter valiantly clashed with the Orcs until the last battle brother was butchered by the Orc onslaught. The Lion Sable was a loyalist successor chapter of the Dark Angels. It participated in the military campaign known as the Forgotten Wars. This was a period of time between the 31st and the 32nd millennium, where the chapter was led to the border of the Eye of Terror, alongside their parent chapter and other scions of Lionel Johnson. Their secret mission was to destroy a fallen angel stronghold. The grueling campaign proved to be a trap, where the entire planet was going to be engulfed in a terrible warp storm. It was Cypher, one of the most famous fallen angels, that alerted the Loyalists of their impending doom. And even though this warning came just in time for the Sons of the Lion to escape, the Lion Sable chapter decided to stay and continue to purge their traitor brethren. Guided by the Dark Angel's Supreme Grand Master, who was inspired by the chapter's tenacity, the Astarte warriors that stayed behind were all but annihilated. With a majority of the chapter destroyed during the secret conflict, the few remaining Lion Sable battle brothers and their gene seed was dispersed among the other successor chapters of the Dark Angels, and only the inner circle of the Sons of the Lion truly knew of the heroic sacrifice of the Lion Sable chapter. Among the traitor legions, no one has a better record of destroying whole Spacemarine chapters like the Alpha Legion. Through a series of intrigues and deceptions arranged by the Alpha Legion's Chaos Lord, Quetzalcoatlc, who was following the orders of Alpharius himself to masquerade as the Primarch, or was actually Omegon masquerading as Alpharius, who was actually Quetzalcoatlc. They/them were able to target the Loyalist Space Marine chapters of the Nova Legion, the Crimson Consuls, Vindicators, and the Marines Mordant. These chapters were all created as wardens of the rimward frontier of the Maelstrom Zone, and in a coordinated assault launched by the Alpha Legion, every single chapter was destroyed. A horrendous death that earned the Chaos Lord the name Angel's Bane and made him one of the Space Marines' most hated traitors. The Alpha Legion was also involved in the destruction of the mysterious Space Marine chapter, known as the Emperor's Swords. So incredibly deceitful was this traitor legion that Imperial records contained 2 Space Marine chapters by the same name. It is unclear if this contradiction was caused by the schemes of the Alpha Legion, or if it was the fault of the Imperium's terrible bureaucratic powers, but the Loyalist chapter was slowly corrupted through the infiltration of sleeper cells hidden within the Emperor's Swords recruits. The process took over 300 years and over a dozen generations. The Alpha Legion manipulated the gangs and sects of the Emperor's Sword's homeworld of Gorstengrad, a heavily populated Imperial hive world. The Alpha Legion's operatives placed subconscious triggers in the rituals used by the gangs and sects who inhabited the underhives of the planet's voracious hive city. It was from these gangs and sects that the Emperor's Swords recruited new Space Marines for their chapter. Through unknown means, the triggers were not detected by the librarians or the chaplains in charge of testing the neophytes, and when the Legion finally launched its assault on the chapter homeworld, it was able to use the subconscious triggers it had placed within the recruits to disorient and confuse a good number of loyalist Astartes. These members of the Emperor's Swords even turned on their fellow Space Marines. In the ensuing chaos, the Emperor's Swords ceased to function as a chapter. Some of the survivors turned renegade and joined the Alpha Legion. Those that died at the traitor's hand had their gene seed harvested for use by the Alpha Legion in creating new Chaos Space Marines. As for the planet, it fell to the control of Chaos and became a stronghold for the ruinous powers. The other chapter, recorded as the Emperor's Swords, was also completely wiped out, but not by the schemes of the Alpha Legion, as far as the Imperium knows, but rather the Necron Force that awoke beneath the chapter homeworld of Bellicus. Though the Space Marines fought with determination and never once surrendered to the never-ceasing swarm of Necron warriors, after 3 weeks the battle was won by the Necron Lord Trachis, following the personal decapitation of Captain Arnik Vorain. 2 decades later, the Imperium got its revenge when the Fire Lord's chapter descended upon the blighted world of Bellicus, exterminating the Necron menace and avenging the destruction of the Emperor's Swords. Aside from Xenos and heretics, the Imperium itself has been involved in the extermination of Space Marine chapters. The Angels of Retribution are one of these unlucky chapters to feel the backstabbing wrath of humanity. The autonomous Space Marines often find themselves bickering with other organizations within the Imperium of Man, and one of the agencies that most Space Marines never see eye to eye, despite having the same goal, is the Officio Assassinorum. Because of the long-standing warrior traditions and codes of honor by which most Space Marines operate, the vast majority of chapters see the assassin's trade as distasteful at best. Though the Official's operatives have fought alongside the Space Marines on countless battlefields across the Imperium, there are several incidences in the history of the Adeptus Astartes where assassins have been implicated as enemies rather than allies. The Official Sicinorum is suspected in the involvement of the Angels of Retribution's demise. Almost all records of the events leading up to the chapter's last stand, where they were ambushed on the planet of Elantros 10, have been completely destroyed. But what is known is that the chapter was slain to the last man by very precise Imperial weapon fire, something uncommon to most Astra Militarum forces. A strangely empty set of early power armor was discovered near the site of the ambush, where the Angels of Retribution finally fell. No inquiries by the Inquisition or the High Lords of Terra have gone into the Official Sicinorum for this action. Although the Imperium has suffered the loss of many Space Marine chapters, the tragedy always comes as a shock to the Imperium. On the rare occasion that a Space Marine chapter is destroyed, the terrible news is carried by telepathic communication of an astropath to Holy Terra itself. When all the High Lords are notified, the next step is for the Council to order the tolling of the Bell of Lost Souls. This is a massive Titan-sized bell that hangs from one of the Imperial Palace's grand towers. Unlike the other towers, the one that houses the Bell of Lost Souls is completely black and stands out amongst the golden peaks. Hundreds of attendants, from palace serfs to servitors, are tasked to rally all the residents of the massive structure that is the Imperial Palace. Vox transmissions are boomed throughout the palace, and the order to evacuate is given. The masses are corralled into a specially designed bunker. Once everyone is safely inside the shelter, a serf will start to work the controls in order to awaken the Continental Communication Relays. An overseer will then key in 103 ciphers required to unlock the safeguards that will allow his menials to access the deeper systems. When all is ready, a single servant will have one hand resting on the ornate control console and the other on the lever that will activate the mechanics within the holy monument. When ordered to do so, the serf grips the lever and whispers the name of the destroyed chapter as he pulls it. The last lament for the fallen then rings out across mankind's birth world, ignored by none and heard by all. This 8-hour-long process creates a ring so loud that any unlucky soul that did not make it to the reinforced shelters will be annihilated as their organs rupture from the rampaging ring. Holy Terra itself stops at what is described as the screams of an agonized god covers the planet. Legends say that the Emperor of Mankind sheds a single tear whenever he hears the bell struck. The bell is so profoundly moving that humanity can't help but mourn the death of the fallen. And those were 40 facts on the destroyed chapters of the Space Marines. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Now, there are a lot of Space Marine chapters that died in one go during the destruction of Bao by the Tyranids. We're going to create a completely separate video for them. Just know that the Blood Angels and their successors suffered terrible losses during that time. Probably the most of any event within the 40K universe. So we'll talk about that later. Subscribe to the channel to get that. If you guys have any other suggestions or questions, comment down below. I'll be down there talking to you guys. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It is because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. Simply by watching and commenting down in the comment section below also helps. So thank you guys for all that you do. And I will see you tomorrow with more cool 40K lore. This was Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.